Welcome to the 1-2 podcast by UTMP.
So for those of you who don't know and they're listening now, we're a new fan-based blogging website and a supporters group where we do a closer research and analysis on things like transfers, footballing moments, League One opposition, and eventually, when things get back to normal, betting odds. Chris, it's obviously called the 1-2 podcast. So, would you like to recommend to us another fan that can feature on our next show?
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to do Michael Jarvis.
Unfortunately, we've been unable to get a hold of Michael Jarvis this week, but in the meantime, we've got some bonus content from rival fans. Today's show features Swindon fan and teacher Mark Godley. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You okay?
Yeah, not not bad.
Yeah,
all things considered.
Yeah. Wow. Where do we start? Just want to thank you first for coming on. I appreciate that.
That's all right, mate. No worries at all. Well, us fellow teachers have got to stick together during these very strange times. So, irrespective of what part of the country we come from.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Okay. I think I'm going to start off with a bit about Keshi and a bit about Jerry Yates, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Last week we spoke to a Rotherham fan, Liam, just about Jerry Yates, and the question to you is: do you think he's a talent, and why aren't Swindon able to keep hold of their better players?
No, listen, Dan. I think that's a great question to start. If it's okay, I'll sort of hopefully reply to the second part of that question. I'll come back onto Jerry in a second.
Yeah, of course.
Because you sort of almost opened up a bit of the hornet's nest really there, because the club is obviously, like many clubs in sort of, kind of lower division football, is had lots of challenging times financially through, a variety of owners, and clearly you guys have suffered with that in the past as well.
Yeah.
And we've got a current owner at the moment who, it really depends what side of the fence you sit on with him. He's very much divided opinion. I think there's a groundswell of opinion that we don't feel that he's got the investment to be able to really take the club forward. Right. I think it's fair to say he probably recognises that himself. And that's made it particularly challenging, to kind of come away from League Two, having had just the most fantastic season, putting a squad together that, with all due respect, was very much a League One squad. And and we've been in League One. Obviously, we've been in the Premier League, but we certainly, like yourselves, but we sort of recognise League One and the challenges that's going to face this season. Because clearly there's a number of very, very strong clubs that are either remained in the division, but also clubs that have come down from the Championship. Mm-hmm. It's looking a particularly strong league this year.
Yeah,
and I think that when you potentially lose, 3 or 4 of your mainstay starting 11. With not really much clue as to what that's going to be replaced by, is clearly making the fans a bit nervous.
So is it not that he doesn't want to invest, it's just that he doesn't have the finances to back it up? Is that the case?
I think it's a combination of both. I don't think he has the finances. I don't actually think he wants to. I don't think there's any particular love for the club. I think it was just an opportunity at a given time in which to buy into a football club. He's obviously a football man. He's played professional football, and we had some association with Tim Sherwood for a period of time. We had a number of loanee signings from Spurs for a time, which when he first came and sort of got us out of arguably out of a bit of a predicament. But in a sense, we've come out of one predicament and kind of gone into another one, really. And, Richie Wellens has to take a massive amount of credit for what we did last year. When Richie took over from Phil Brown the previous season, we were not going well. We weren't in any danger of leaving the Football League or anything like that, but it wasn't a happy place. The football wasn't great. Richie came over, got beat 3-0 on his first game, I think it was, at home to Carlisle United. I suspect realised the magnitude of the job that he was undertaking. And, through him and Paul Jewell and their recruitment, obviously have managed to bring in some great loan signings, which was both Jerry Yates and, Owen Doyle last year. Mm-hmm. Anthony Grant, ironically, I suspect we might come on to him in a minute.
Yeah,
he was a loan signing from Shrewsbury.
Edmonds Green as well.
Yeah, Edmonds Green from Huddersfield. And, so there are a number of really, really good signings. And, some lads that were hungry, wanted to play. And I have to say, last season, despite the way in which that we went up, probably, from my point of view, was one of the most pleasurable seasons for many, many years. Just the very nature of how we played the game, how Richie got us playing, the way that the club really started to get, from a sort of social media standpoint, much more togetherness between the club and the fans, which had been really missing in a number of years.
Yeah.
And that feel-good factor that was generated, with our promotion and going up as champions, seems to have dissipated in a very quick and a very short space of time.
It's hard to take enjoyment out of signing these players when, as a Blackpool fan, you know exactly what you're talking about. We can empathise with you completely, and it's weird. It's weird being on the other foot, because we've been used to it so much ourselves under the Oystons, and having a lack of investment and having talent that just gets snatched from you. So, can definitely feel for you there.
Yeah, I think when Jerry went, and that was where the kind of the original question started. I know we slightly deviated, but when we talked about Jerry, one of the things that Jerry brought to our football team and back to our club was that the lad never stops running. He's got an engine on him. Like, he's just fantastic. His enthusiasm, his energy, his drive, for a young lad who's on loan was quite incredible. Mm-hmm. And naturally the fans just took to him straight away. I'm led to believe, I've been fortunate enough to talk to one or two of the players, and I know a couple of ex-players that have got an association with the club. And behind the scenes, I think he's a really big character. He's a lot of fun. The lads really like him, and I think he's. I'm very disappointed that Jerry's gone. I think, from our point of view, another season with us and with Richie could have really developed him. I'm not saying he won't develop with you guys at all, but I think that what we were looking at was that potential for him to, come to us and really sort of kick on and push on, and possibly then, he might even go further. But I think he's given the right set of circumstances. He's not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination, but he's hungry and he's enthusiastic and he's keen and he's bolshy, and he all the things that football fans like is to my mind is what Jerry brings to it. So I think that's a cracking signing for you, I have to say. And I can tell you now that did not, you may have read some of the forums if you've been able to have access and have a look, but that signing didn't go down well at all.
Yeah. I think that I don't actually think I wasn't sure that he was convinced about Blackpool or wanted to come. I do feel like he had an affiliation with Swindon, a strong one as well. And I think that's why it dragged on so long. I think it's because he was maybe waiting or hoping that something would happen with Swindon. I'm not sure. I think in the end, Rotherham just said we'll take the better offer because of the money behind it, and he probably wants to go for the money himself as well to better himself. But I did think that part of the stalling, because he almost said in his interview that he needed persuading by Keshi Anderson.
And do you know what, Dan? I really appreciate you saying it that way, because it would be quite easy just to say, oh no, you wanted to come to Blackpool or whatever. I think from our point of view, this is where the frustration with the chairman comes into it, because I think it was absolutely clear that Richie wanted to keep him. I think that was an absolute given. The fans wanted him there. And you're absolutely right. It was dragging on. And I always get nervous with our chairman that if it's going down to the wire, generally it doesn't happen. And, obviously when you guys announced him, it was a huge disappointment to a lot of fans. Now, there's a number of fans that say, hang on a minute, he's only had, one good season. He's still learning his trade. Is he going to cut it in League One? My answer to them is I think he will, because I just think he's that type of energetic, and I used that word enthusiastic earlier on, character that you want in your football side. And I think he'll be an asset to Blackpool. I really do. And I see, I might be wrong, but I see him having a good future at that level, possibly slightly higher. But I'm not sure that he's an elite player, but I do think he's got a great opportunity of having a really good career. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And you're right about the persuading. I think that he was, in a way, he was idolised. And he's a young lad, by especially like, the young supporters and things like that. Yeah. Guys a little bit younger than me. I think that there was very much a feeling that what he brought to the side, but also what he brought to the sort of integration with the fans and things like that. You know, the kind of the attitude toward the fans at the end of games and all that kind of thing. He really brought that to the fore, and I think that's why the fans embraced him. We you know, the town had been waiting for that for a number of years. We wanted a side that we could almost say that, you know, we're really proud of this team, because we hadn't been able to do that for a few years, and he was very much a part of that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to be on to Keshi now. So does Keshi, how's the thoughts and feelings with him leaving? Does he sort of match up to the stature of Jerry Yates? Did he have the same qualities of Jerry Yates in terms of his actual footballing ability? Or what was his effort like?
Keshi's a bit of an enigma, I think. I mean, he's played on, I think it was about 100 games he played for us. He scored 15 goals. I think it was 15, something around that. I don't know the exact stats, but I always refer to him to a friend of mine that I go and watch the games with regularly. He kind of flatters to deceive. On occasions, he'll have these bursts. You think, wow, but they were never quite often enough. And you also wonder whether he also needs the right players around him to allow him to do that.
Yeah,
I think when you're up against the wall, if I'm being honest with you, I'm not sure I'd want him in the trenches with me. But I think when we're going well and we're flowing, then I think that's probably where you get the best out of him. But I often felt watching him, there was more to him, or there was the potential, you know, to get from him. Now, the change of scenery, you know, as we know, sometimes that can really be beneficial to a player. Clearly, Blackpool have got the good, you know, the feel-good factor, you know, back with them, and looks like they potentially can have a good season. He may well actually flourish in that environment.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have said that the fans were quite as disappointed about Keshi leaving as they were Jerry.
Yeah, I got the feeling that Keshi split a few opinions. And also, the Low Strangers podcast, I think, mentioned that Keshi was coming into like better form towards the end of his time at Swindon. Would you agree with that?
I would. Yeah, I would. And I think that's a fair comment. I think, and this is, you're right, where you said about dividing opinions. I think that there was some improvement in his form. But once again, you have to also, you know, link that in with the improvement of the team. You know, when the team wasn't doing well in the previous 4 or 5 years, neither was Keshi. He wasn't one that was going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and really try and take control of a situation and sort of, you know, drag other players along with him. The fact that we were going well last season, which, going back to my original point, I felt was why that he probably, you know, had a better season, you know, last season than he had done previously.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I really like Keshi at the moment because he's been a bit of a Blackpool legend, I suppose. Maybe not a legend as such, but he's just been helping us out with getting players that of good quality that Blackpool need. Much to your disappointment, I appreciate. Have you seen his recent video he uploaded linking Anthony Grant to Blackpool?
I have, and I think it's fairly disingenuous and fairly disrespectful of him to do that and post it. Mm-hmm. You know, Owners does, Trez, or whatever it was he did. And I'm sure, you know, Blackpool fans won't give a damn about that. But, you know, if you have any sort of humility, you understand what it's like when one of your best players leaves. You know, one of your players leaves and then is doing everything he can to try and encourage others to, you know, to join him. It doesn't bode well. The forums are not a particularly nice place this evening. Yeah. And it's fair to say that I'm not sure that he'd be welcome back at any time soon. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
That's fair enough. That's a fair comment.
And I think from our point of view as well, sorry, Dan, if I can interrupt. No, so Richie Wellens did an interview on BBC Wiltshire Sound last week. And it was and Richie Wellens is fantastic. He's very candid. He really does just pretty much tell you how it is. And you feel very comfortable with, you know, this man as our manager. And when he tells you live on air that he's had a verbal agreement from Anthony Grant that Anthony Grant is coming back to Swindon Town, for all of us, that's all we needed to hear, right? Mm-hmm. So Anthony Grant has got some, I suppose, responding to do for that, because ultimately, if you tell your gaffer that you're coming back and you verbalised it, and something's changed somewhere along the line, then, you know, that's clearly going to be disappointing to the fans if it does develop as we all suspect it to develop. So, and I have to tell you, I'm a huge Anthony Grant fan. So for me to speak in that kind of way is really disappointing for me on a personal level. He would have been my player of the year. Well, in fact, I voted for him for player of the year.
He was player of the year, wasn't he?
Yeah. And again, another asset, you know, to the club, who was let's be fair, he was frozen out at Shrewsbury. Things weren't right there at all. Richie brings him to the club. There's rumours and rumblings as to why he wasn't in the frame at Shrewsbury, but they are what they are. And obviously really, really embraced the club as the fans did with him. And once again was a part of something that was developing quite nicely. So to lose, two of those three would be big disappointments to us. And I don't wish to be unkind to Keshi, but we probably feel that Keshi was a bit more replaceable.
Yeah.
But they're all replaceable, but you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, potentially, yeah. We don't know if Grant is going to. We don't know what he's going to do, actually, to be honest. So I was just talking that speculation-wise, but a lot of Blackpool fans don't really get it. Not really sure about it. Obviously, you are. He sounds like he's like you said, you're a big fan of him. He was voted the Swindon Town Player of the Year by the fans. He's described as a combative defensive midfielder and his experience at this level. He's also 33 as well. What are his abilities? And can he still cut it, being that age?
I think that's a really, really great question, because obviously Shrewsbury were in the league last season, and they felt that they had enough to let him go, and he found a home with us and did exceptionally well. I'd like to think that, once again, given the right set of circumstances, I do believe that he will still potentially have a very, very good season. He's got a good engine on him. He reads the game well. He's physically strong. He's actually, when you see him on the pitch, he looks bigger than what he actually is. He's not, he's not a big lad, but when he's on the pitch, he seems to command the pitch quite well. And some of his performances last season, one in particular, I remember, we played Plymouth away on New Year's Day, which was a massive game, and we were really threadbare. We had, poor old Richie had injury after injury after injury, and so much so that Anthony had to play at centre half that day. He was magnificent. I mean, as were all the other lads, in fairness. But on that particular day, we won the game. And it was Doyley's last game before he had to go back to Bradford. So it had sort of special significance for us all. And I was lucky enough to be at the game. That's probably one of the best games I've seen for many a year. And, and he was a big part of that. And so he's got a bit of versatility in him as well. But yeah, listen, I have to tell you, I don't want him to sign for you. I want him to stay at Swindon. Do another year, I do think he can.
So apart from his tackling, I've seen some of his highlights reel from Swindon, where he's made these huge crunching tackles, all clean, all good. Yeah. Does he have any other abilities apart from being like a man that's going to break up play?
He does get forward, and he likes to get forward. He likes to thread a pass if he's got the option on. So let's not sort of think that that's all he does. Mm-hmm. But actually, at that level, and League Two is not quite as bad as it was a few years ago. I've seen us in League Two before, and League Two was a lot stronger last year than it has been. Given the way that these young lads are coached nowadays. League One and League Two are just not like the long ball hoofing that it was sort of 10, 15 years ago. And what struck me with Granty is just his ability to read the game as well, and also to work with others around him, given that experience that he's got. Is he going to be prolific in front of goal and things like that? No, absolutely not. That's not what he's all about. But I think he might have scored a couple last season. But his main part of the game is just sort of knitting things together, and I felt he did that very well, right through that sort of middle, that kind of spine of the side, if you like. So you imagine you've got Doyle and Yates up front, you've got Granty in the middle,
nailing the spine.
Baudry or Dion Conroy, at the back, that were incredibly strong for us pretty much most of the season. So, and Stephen Bender in goal. So we had a really good spine of the team, of which Granty was very much a part of that. Yeah,
is he nicknamed the General? Is that it?
I think he might be, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
I just refer to him as Granty, but he was you felt like he was the gaffer, if you know what I mean. So, and again, another one who had a pretty strong rapport with the fans, because the fans very much warmed to him very early doors. Bearing in mind he didn't actually start. I think it was Orient away very early on in the season, where Lydon got an injury, I think it was, and Granty came on for him and pretty much stayed there for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't have said he was the natural first choice when he first came. Maybe he wasn't quite fit, perhaps, but the minute he got his opportunity, it was always one of those players, if he wasn't on the team sheet, you'd start to get a bit nervous.
It's interesting, because I thought we were signing him as, obviously, I knew he's an experienced head, can read the game, like you said. That's what you need. Because we've got a team at the moment. Our transfer strategy is to get them while they're quite young. That's Critchley's sort of way at the moment. So I was quite pleased that he's going to have an experienced head. But I also thought he perhaps might be one of those guys to have in the changing rooms that'll just like sort of be your sort of talisman, your sort of what Akinfenwa was for Wigan, I suppose. But it sounds like that maybe Jerry's more of that than I thought he was.
Well, Jerry, as my understanding, obviously I've never been privy to being in the change room. This is just obviously the sort of feedback that you get was just hugely popular, and was one of these that there was no sort of cliques within the team, as I was told. And Jerry would be very much a part of making sure that there weren't those cliques. He was pretty much friendly with everybody, and I think I think Granty was popular, but in a different way. I think just the very nature of how he played, like you said, that older head, that wiser, that experience. And I'm only talking to you through sort of anecdotal evidence. I've got no personal evidence of it, but they're two good players. They're strong players, and I think that you wouldn't have been the only ones that were looking at them. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I've got a few more questions. That's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
So I said, apart from Grant, it's like it's getting a bit mental now. Blackpool have also been linked with your left back, Zack Friars.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, he's a Manchester lad, isn't he? Yeah,
and he has 1 year left though. So my opinion is that he's not going anywhere. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know that Richie likes him. I actually was lucky enough to bump into Richie one night. Funny enough, a staff night out in the lovely city of Bath. And I spotted him. I thought, that's Richie Wellens over there. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to go and chat to him. And, he might tell me to get lost, but he might be quite, gracious and have a chat with me. And he was. And Zeki was one of the ones that we talked about. And because I was lucky enough to speak to Zeki a couple of weeks previously. And Richie spoke well of him and felt that, there was a lot of potential there. Unfortunately, he did have a couple of injuries last year, Zeki, which made life a little bit difficult for him to get some really kind of, regular game in, game out, game time. But when he played well, and he was definitely getting better. You could see that, and getting sort of used to the pace. And it can be quite aggressive at times in League Two. And but I would imagine that he would be one that they'd want to keep. I'd be surprised if they let him go, given also what's gone on with the other two or three.
Yeah. We've also been, I know he's not actually with you, it's Huddersfield, the Romani Edmonds-Green. I was going to ask your opinion on him. What were your thoughts with him and how he did?
He did well when he came in. Another strong lad, good header of a ball, not the tallest, but grew in confidence as time progressed. And once again, all I can say is, it wouldn't bother me if we saw him back down at Swindon again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he's a young lad as well. I think he was 20.
Oh, yeah, he's young.
Yeah.
I think he was playing. If I remember rightly, he was playing he was on loan at a non-league club when he came to us. I think, and you'll have to forgive me because I haven't done my research on it.
No,
but fine. I seem to recall when we signed him on loan, and we were thinking, right, we've got a bit of a shortage of centre halves here, and we just signed a lad that's come from a non-league club. Is that going to work? And I have to say, he did a good job. He did a very, very good job.
He coped with it physically as well, being that young.
He did. Yeah, he did. I think it was one of those. He had to, get himself into the games and things like that. As you could see, as a lot of these young lads, when they come into it, they sort of, if they're worth their salt, they tend to progress a little bit, don't they, and get used to the pace and the strength of the game. And he very much coped with that. So, yeah, I was led to believe that Huddersfield did actually, quite like him. And he was very much in their thoughts. So, possibly, I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, appreciate that.
You're not going to tell me of anybody else that you're looking at, are you?
No. I think there was one more. But is it Baddy? Is Steve Baddy or something? Was that? I've not heard that one. Someone told me to mention that. I've not heard it. I just thought I'd leave that one for now. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure what your setup is at Swindon in terms of how involved you are with, I suppose, the diehard fans.
Yeah. I'm
not sure about this question. I'm going to ask anyway. It's just a question. Right. So the way Blackpool have conducted business and the way you're on the receiving end of this, obviously it's going to cause a bit of rivalry. Do you think that's going to overspill at the games? How do you think that's going to? How will Swindon fans cope with this? Do you think? Do you think is it getting nasty into that stage?
Do you know what? That's a really interesting question. I hadn't really given that much consideration.
We think it's become a bit of a derby. That's why a lot of people are saying, a lot of fans are laughing at the situation, not having much empathy, I'd say. and it's becoming like that's the game I'm looking most forward to be honest, massively.
Yeah, I think. Look, listen. To be honest with you, on our scale of rivalries, Blackpool won't be anywhere near Oxford and Bristol Rovers, right? So and Plymouth. So so they're going to be the three probably big ones for us next season. I think that Keshi's probably not helped the thing tonight. I think that's fair to say. There's a lot of anger, but ironically, I think the anger would have probably spilled out even further had we been all very supportive of our chairman and things like that. There's a lot of negativity towards our chairman. So actually the chairman is probably going to be the one that's going to be taking a lot of sort of finger pointing as to what's gone on and why this has been allowed to happen. So I think the frustrations may well be more directed there as opposed to Blackpool Football Club. So listen, I can't vouch for all the fans. I do know a number of the lads that travel and, a number of, obviously, lads that are from the supporters club and a number of lads that have followed Swindon for many, many years, as me and some friends have done. And I can't vouch for, how they're going to react to it. Mm-hmm. But I do know that there's a groundswell of opinion that's hugely frustrated more at the chairman rather than Blackpool. I mean, obviously, it's like, are you Swindon in disguise? That's the kind of, the type of conversations that are going on at the moment. And you would expect that. You're starting to take 3 or 4 players from the same club. I mean, it's fairly a unique situation. It doesn't happen very often.
Has it gone beyond flattery to more frustration, to past frustration, perhaps?
I think it's gone to frustration. But I think that you're, in a sense, of every pre-season, and whilst I know we're in very strange times at the moment, but every pre-season we go through this drama and this charade with our chairman where we're having to rebuild the side, players are leaving, we've got no idea who's coming in, and we're at this stage again, but we've lost 2 or 3 of our better players. So we're kind of, listen, these guys might know more than I know. They may be pulling a few rabbits out of hats in the next couple of weeks. And actually, we may think about this and say, well, you know what? The replacement's actually pretty good. Let's see where we end up. Or, hang on a minute, the spine of the side's gone. Okay, this is going to be a challenging time for us. And at the minute, we just don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the fans are very frustrated because, and more so with the Anthony Grant thing, I think that, the Yates thing bothered people, but that's typical of our chairman, not putting the decent bid in or whatever, as we're led to believe. Keshi, well, he was always going to be moving on at some point anyway. Granty, when you're told by your manager live on radio that he's had a verbal agreement with Anthony Grant, and when he comes back off holiday, I expect him to sign. Yeah, that one obviously is going to stick in the teeth a little bit. And we're at the same situation now where we've got no clue. We've got no idea who's coming in. Everything's rumour and conjecture. We've got no idea. My main concern is Richie himself.
Is he going to stay?
Listen, at the end of the day, I hope he is. And I hope what the chairman's telling him is strong enough to, because I think, Richie Wellens had a really fantastic season last season and had a very good end to his previous season with us at Swindon and showed an awful lot of skill in bringing those lads together. And it can't be. I'm sure that there would be clubs that would be looking for somebody like a Richie Wellens. Let's put it that way.
Definitely.
So
he was a great player. He obviously played for Blackpool. There's a bit of bad taste in Blackpool fans' mouth though, because he decided it would be a good idea to slag Blackpool off in the press and basically say that we didn't have any ambition as a club. It just stemmed from the Oldham days when he moved to Oldham. I'm pretty sure that he did a knee slide in front of us after he scored against us as well, which didn't go down well with the fans at all. When Charlie Adam came in, Charlie Adam's first game for us, he got a red card for sliding in on Wellens, and the fans took to Charlie after that and loved it. So I think since that sort of episode, that moment where Wellens is like, he might have celebrated against us, I think, with a goal or two, and he's just sort of gone not gone down estimations because we know he's a fantastic player. Obviously, we know he's a good manager as well. But I think, especially in the games, Blackpool fans are going to love chanting everything about Swindon towards Richie to get a reaction out of him, I think, as well.
It's really interesting because, we wouldn't know that about Wellens, in terms of those circumstances that you just described there, with the Charlie Adam thing and things like that. And obviously that sort of connection from that point of view between the fans and, and our manager. I can just tell you that from our point of view that, we've got a guy at the helm that for the first time for some time we feel comfortable with, and clearly he's produced. Mm-hmm. We were just hoping that, momentum's a wonderful thing in football. We were hoping that we might be able to continue with some momentum. I think what strikes me and what worries me is why they've been allowed to leave, and why they've not stayed.
Yeah.
So something somewhere is not right. Now, whether that's the contractual agreements or arrangements or times, or I don't know, but something's not right for those players to have all up sticks and gone. So
especially from a winning side as well. Like, you've won promotion. Like, that doesn't make, like, you win promotion, you stick with a team because you want to go again with the same players. So I definitely have to agree with you there.
Yeah, the Owen Doyle one was, Owen Doyle left with everybody just patting him on the back. Can't wait to see him again, really, in a sense, because, his family are from up north. He was getting to that.
Didn't he?
Say again?
Got a long contract at Bolton as well.
Exactly, Dan. And we were not in a position to do that. And very few clubs would have probably given a player of that age that type of contract anyway. So, you've got to turn around and say, do you know what? Thank you for everything. Knock yourself out and go and set you and your family up for your future, especially given everything that's going on at the minute. But, when that, I think we all expected Doyle to go, if the truth be told. I think we would have been amazed if he'd stayed. What was really surprising, though, is I think we genuinely believe that Yates and Grant would have been Swindon players this year. And those two in particular will be of great disappointment if the Grant thing goes the way that we think it's going to go. Would be of great disappointment to the Town fans. I'm not trying to say that in a politically correct way. It would be a huge disappointment. And yes, some fans will be angry. Yes, some fans will be directing their, venom toward the chairman. He's not universally liked, and this is clearly not going to help his cause. I'm not particularly sure that he cares about that, if I'm being honest with you. But so we are where we are, and you are where you are,
Yeah, Swindon signed Hallam Hope in January, who Blackpool were linked with last summer. Just wondered how he. So well done. You're beating us for one signing. Yeah. I just wondered how he was done, and if he's been a good acquisition for you.
Yeah, Hallam was a sort of on the periphery, I would say, of things. He came in, obviously, he was one of the permanent signings in the January window, as opposed to a loan. And I think, again, with a view to a sort of a long-term view with him. He very much played his part, scored a couple of important goals. And, probably like most players, unfortunately, he was only with us from January through to March when the season ended. Yeah. So very difficult to get a gauge on him over an extended period of time. I would say that, the early indications are he's definitely got something, but I think it would be fair to say that we didn't see as much as we would like to, given the fact that the season ended so abruptly.
Yeah, that's fair. I did think you only got a window of a few weeks there to actually get a proper looking at him.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and finally then, I guess you touched on this already, so based on what might happen or going to happen, do you think Swindon are going to struggle now in League One, and is it going to be a relegation battle? Where do you expect to finish up?
Well, it's another very, I suppose, the old cliche, what is it, $60,000 question or $50, I don't know, whatever the number is, but I don't know is the honest answer, Dan. I really don't know. Yeah. I think we've managed to retain, 3 or 4 of the back 4. We've got a couple of lads in midfield, we've got a couple up front, but we are short. We're short of a keeper. Because obviously we had a fantastic German, Stephen Bender, who was just amazing. Came from Swansea on loan. We had him for the season. So,
sorry, that was a player that my friend mentioned me to ask about. That was the other one Blackpool potentially been linked with. So that was.
Oh, Stephen Bender. What, as in the keeper?
That's right. Yeah.
Whew. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, if you get him, then you just take. You've taken another one of our spine, haven't you? If that does come to fruition, but. I've got to be honest with you, and please don't take this with disrespect because we're in the same league as you. To my mind, Bender's a championship player. I don't think he's League One or League Two. And I think that he should be looking the way he performed last season. He was that typical keeper that actually, was worth a few points over the season. And for a young lad, was fantastically embraced again by the fans, and he was brilliant with the fans as well. Great on social media and that type of thing. I'd like to think that if he was pushing, and I mean this with respect, that he'd be pushing further away, if you like. Given Swansea are in the Championship at the moment, in the playoffs, obviously, whether that's a potential option for him, I don't know. But I think that that's where he should be looking. We had a keeper some time ago called Wes Fodringham that you probably heard of, that was at Rangers. He left us, and they sort of remind me of each other in terms of where I think they might end up, and I just feel that that's where he should be aiming. So, but in terms of where we will overall, you know what, I really don't know. I mean, we've got 2 lads out in Spain at the minute. So if they come back, they could be on quarantine for 2 weeks, so we've got all this to deal with as well. So it's a very strange time. I'd like to think that we won't struggle, but I'm not. I genuinely, Dan, I really don't know. And I think the next 2 or 3 weeks, with pre-season coming back in and hopefully getting, some signings or some sight of some new players, will give us an indication. I'd like to think that we're a club that some players would like to come to. The location, obviously we're in a good location down south. If you're coming from London or Birmingham or Southampton and places like that, we're fairly close by, and there's a decent fan base there. There's a very loyal fan base there, much the same as yourselves. Real hardcore fan base.
There's no expectation then, is there, from the Swindon fans? Is there not an expectation to stay in League One, to be? I think
I think the expectation is definitely to stay in League One, but how we stay in League One, whether it's successfully or a battle, that's really where I don't know. I don't think there's any expectation that we should be looking to drop straight back down to League Two, especially given the way in which we performed this year. And obviously the season that we've just come on the back of. I think that, and that's where I talked about that momentum earlier on. I think that would be a real disappointment if we lost some of that and, went back to the basement division, which none of us like, and really don't ever think of Swindon as a League Two club. I don't think any fan ever thinks that that's where we should be. We believe that we're probably a League One club, possibly, getting somewhere near the Championship. And we feel that that's realistic. But I'm sure there's, about 72 other clubs that think that as well, isn't there? So,
good luck for the season, I guess. And I was going to say, if you'd be up for a pint, I would love to come for a pint with you, either before the game, if we're allowed to go back to stadiums back then, or if you're up here in Blackpool, likewise, I'd definitely join you for a beer.
Dan, that would be lovely, and I really appreciate that. And as I said, I've got your number and so on and so forth. So I'm sure we'll drop the odd, the odd text or whatever. How both sides are getting on. Listen, I hope both sides do okay. Trust me, there's other sides I'd rather go down than you and than Blackpool and Swindon. I can assure you. Gillingham would be one. That's another one. That's another one we don't get on particularly too well with, and which is the weirdest of derbies.
From you, aren't they?
That one stems right back to the 80s. And sadly, I am old enough to remember that one as well. So that's a strange one. So, so there are other teams, and trust me, Oxford and Rovers would be right up there. So Oxford, Rovers, Gillingham to go down would be about the perfect scenario for me. So. But I doubt that's going to happen. So, but we'll see.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much, mate. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Good luck to you.
Yeah, you too. See you later. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye now.
Finally, just a quick word to our listeners. Thanks so much for all the support so far from the UTMP. To get more involved with fan reaction, pool news, and further competitions, make sure that you sign up to our blog page and also follow our social media pages on Twitter and Facebook.